Welcome to Mompreneur Mastery. I'm your host, Sydney O'Brien, an Instagram strategist turned content and messaging strategist after watching the online space get louder, buyers take longer, and content turn into a performance instead of real connection. On this podcast, you'll learn how to clarify your message so your content actually stands out in a sea of copy and paste trends and AI noise, and also how to strategize your content across platforms to build the trust and connection that turns followers into clients. All in doable, brain space saving episodes you can fit in between school pickup and reheating your coffee for the third time. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Mompreneur Mastery. Today's episode is for anyone who has been running a business while also managing kids and general chaos with zero extra capacity, which is me, if I'm being perfectly honest. And most moms I talk to be super fair. So today we get to talk to Candice, who is a therapist and motherhood mentor who actually gets what burnout looks like when you're self-employed and parenting at the same time. So before I jump into my questions, because I have so many, because I'm so excited to talk to you, can you give us a little bit of background about what you do and how you got into this type of work?
Yeah, so I currently run a private practice. I'm a marriage and family therapist, but I kind of got into the coaching side of things, coaching moms in business, because both of my pregnancies, they were back to back, and I had really rough pregnancies and couldn't go back to work while I was pregnant. So I worked from home for a while and tried to find some ways to do things. But my son was born literally the day our hospital shut down for the pandemic. And so once he was born, the world was a different place. And I was like, okay, well, therapy looks different now. And we were gearing up for a cross-country move. And so I just thought, I'll just work online. But there was a lot of things in there that led me to feeling burned out and trying to figure out what the next steps were. And that's kind of how I ended up here. I just followed that path along, and it led me to coaching other moms through burnout and finding their balance and their rhythm so that they can do what they love to do without stressing about a 9 to 5, or really without overcomplicating it, and building it slow and steady so that it's sustainable.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And this actually brought up a whole new line of questions that I have.
Okay.
So how far apart are your kids?
They are 13 months apart. 14 months apart. They are 14 months apart. Just shy of, so.
I have 3 kids, and my older 2 are 20 months apart, and then my younger 2 are 18 months apart, and I always thought that was hard. So I can't imagine being like that close. That's a lot.
It was a lot. They are 6 and 5 now. I'm a little bit out of the weeds now, I guess, yeah. They fight all the time, but other than that.
It sounds like my house. Mine are 5, 6, and 8 right now.
Uh-huh.
And my youngest, I had during COVID, the hospital that I was supposed to give birth at shut down. So I had to drive extra far to give birth, and then did the whole giving birth in a mask thing. That was a fun time.
Yeah, we hadn't had masks yet. That part didn't come yet. And so I was actually really grateful for that. But it was a different hospital than my daughter, but they did shorten our stay. They were like, if we can get you out in 24 hours, we're going to get you out in 24 hours. And I think I was in for 28 hours or something, 29 hours. It was a fast turnaround. So,
mine was very similar.
Yeah.
And I also really resonate with the cross-country move. I haven't done the full cross-country move. My husband's in the Air Force though, so we've gone from South Carolina to Nebraska, back to the East Coast. Lots of moving. It's very stressful.
Yeah, and it's with kids, it's a whole other ball game.
It really is. I remember after my second was born, he was 6 or 7 weeks old, and they were like, okay, you have to move now. So moving halfway across the country with a newborn was quite the experience.
Yeah, that definitely would have been something.
Yeah. Now you mentioned burnout, and that is, I feel a word that we hear a lot of, and it might be one of those how people say use OCD kind of colloquially, but it's not. Do you find it's similar with burnout?
I think it's becoming that way. So there's what we see in therapy as as burnout, and it's typically solely used around jobs and solely used around high stress, like care jobs or like service jobs. So police officers, firefighters, nurses, therapists, doctors, those things. However, the more we learn about it, it is broader, and we notice there is burnout in a lot of capacities, because what that means is you've hit capacity in a way that it's not sustainable to go forward anymore. And this happens to moms a lot when they take on everything, and we were never meant to. And this happens to people who are building businesses because they put their like head to the grindstone and they don't move. Like they just keep pushing and there's no rest. And so those situations happen a lot, and I've noticed they're very similar to the caregiver burnouts and all of that. And so how we navigate them is very similar, but it is becoming a buzzword where people are kind of equating it with I'm bored and I'm tired. And those can be symptoms of it, but they can also just be their own thing. And so I help clients really navigate, if they're in burnout, how to get out of it. And if they're not, but they feel like they're getting there, how to pull back from the brink so they don't ever have to cross that line. So,
and what does it look like when someone is in like actual burnout? Like what are they feeling and experiencing?
there is a lot of tired, there's a lot of avoidance, there's a lot of procrastination. We get a lot of physical symptoms, headaches, like our body's just worn out. It can present a lot like depression or anxiety over work tasks or the tasks related to whatever is causing the burnout. So, not wanting to show up for your appointments, not booking appointments because then you don't have to have them, or those kinds of things. And so it's a lot of avoidance. It's a lot of, it builds up a lot of resentment. You start hating what you're doing or disliking what you're doing. So this thing that you once loved, you treat with contempt now. Those are all signs of like active burnout. And the signs that you're getting there are like the early stages of those things. You are tired a lot more. You are finding spikes of anxiety when you want to book something or do something, or you push something off a little bit longer and do something to distract yourself, or those kinds of things.
That's super interesting because, as someone who has like dealt with depression and anxiety for years and years and years, I feel like there's a lot of overlap there. Is it hard to figure out if someone is experiencing like depression, anxiety, or burnout, or like a combination?
It can be. With depression and burnout, breaks and rest is not going to fix it, right? Like if you take a couple days off and get back to it and you're refreshed, you weren't completely in burnout and you're probably not in active depression. But it can be hard to kind of figure that out. So I usually work with clients to make that assessment, because then if they're actively in depression, especially, I'm going to tell them you probably should see a therapist before you get coaching. And I'm only licensed in Washington State, and I don't work with people that I coach in my therapy business, and vice versa, because it's ethically just not. So it can be hard, but there are subtle signs, like if you change your focus or you tweak a few things and then you're starting to really love what you're doing, but you're still feeling sad or low, or it's still hard to get motivated, then it was probably more depression than burnout. The anxiety piece is a little harder to tease out sometimes, because anxiety and depression are their own animals, but anxiety is its own little thing where so many of us are living with high functioning anxiety that it's just hard to tease it out from everything, because it's like, this is just my day-to-day life. I'm just a little bit on edge. And so, that's something I would refer to for a therapist also. Like, hey, maybe talk to someone about that. But then you still build the skills. But depression is one that I really keep an eye on if I notice it, to like get support, because it's just harder to get through your life with.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. And you talk about unexpected causes of burnout. What were the ones that blindsided you, or ones you see a lot in your clients?
So for moms especially, these are, I would say, causes might not have been the right word to use, but like contributing factors. And surprising ones for me, that once I dug down into it, I realized were things like, one of the biggest ones was sleep, which we obviously don't always have control over when we're a new mom, because babies and toddlers and things like that. But sleep, nailing down something that gives you optimal sleep for that season is going to help immensely. And when it's out of whack, it raises depression, anxiety, burnout, and just struggles in general. But number 2, this one was the biggest one for me that I didn't even realize until I really thought about it, but kidtainment. It took over our life. Kids' movies, kids' music, kids, toys that play songs and all that. Like all the time in the car, the kids are wanting to listen to Baby Shark or whatever, and not giving yourself and your partner the freedom to take control of entertainment sometimes in your household the way that our parents did, I think really plays a factor in some of our burnout, because you're constantly inundated with stuff that you are not getting stimulated by. It's not connecting with your spirit. Because I don't know about you, but music is a big thing for me. And when I was just not having any of my music, I was just like, I hate this so much. I was getting resentful, I was like, why do we have to listen to this one more time? Why are you playing this TV show one more time? But it's also with TV, you limit it for when they're young, and then everyone's household is different with screen time. But you don't want them exposed to certain things. So you just throw on, Baby First, or I can't think of any right now, but switching that up helped a lot. So I don't know if that resonates with you, but I've noticed a lot of my clients feel the same way. So
yeah, that's so funny. I was talking to my husband about that the other day, about how like when we were kids, our parents controlled like the TV, the radio, like whatever we were listening to or watching. And now it's like the kids, they control everything.
They control everything.
Like, everything all the time.
Changing that actually made such a big difference in our household altogether, because our son from a really young age loved music, but exposing him to more types of music like made him come alive in a way that the kids' music, he still likes some of it. Like sometimes he'll ask for it, but letting him have that exposure made this musical part of him come alive. And then our daughter just seeing more creative things than just what she was seeing also expanded her communication and her verbalization and things like that. So I actually think it did us way more good to let the parents take back some control. And then I wasn't burning out as much because I was connecting with things that make me feel alive. So that's probably my number 2, is start changing that, even if it's 10 minutes a day, and it makes such a difference. So that's the second one. But yeah, any more thoughts on that before I give the next ones?
No, I'm really excited to try that. My kids listen to a ton of like podcasts and like audiobooks all day long, which I don't hate. I love that it's like something that isn't screens, because my kids are they get very like super sucked into screens. And then when it's time to turn it off, it's like a huge deal. But yeah, I think I'm also one of those people that really connects with music. So being able to have that back in my life would be so nice.
Yeah, I say give it a try.
Yeah.
It made a huge difference around here. The next one is not giving yourself any margins in your life. So filling it with business tasks, with, your kids' stuff, filling it with home tasks, which a lot of us as moms are like, well, if I don't do it, no one's going to do it. Right. So one thing that I really started working with some of my therapy and coaching clients with this year is that you can never actually be behind on your housework, because it's always. So if you wait to do a task so you can have some downtime, it's still going to be there. Yes, it'll still have to get done, but it's not going to be like you missed some big deadline. It's just the dishes are going to get dirty again tomorrow. So if you take a little time, it's okay. Everyone's wearing clothes every day, so you can't truly be behind on your housework. So giving yourself margin where you're not filling every minute of your day, but so that you have time to be creative, time to think, which this one is also hard if you don't have supportive people who can take some of the motherhood tasks sometimes, or if you can't pay for childcare. But if you can have that support and you can get childcare on some capacity, give yourself a break, give yourself a margin where you're not filling it with business tasks, you're not filling it with motherhood tasks or home tasks, you're just giving yourself time and space to breathe and be human. And that's a really big one that I think a lot of my clients struggle hard with, because I know I struggle with that.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing, like, man, that sounds really nice, but I don't know if I could do it. I feel like every time I sit down to like do something like read or just do nothing, I feel like guilty because like there's a pile of laundry over here just like staring me in the face.
And that is why I work with my clients on mindset shifts, my coaching clients and my therapy clients. But in my coaching business, we work on mindset shifts around that because that mom guilt is real. You look at something in your kitchen that needs to be done or the laundry that's sitting next to you on the couch, and it takes up a lot of brain space, but there are still ways to work out margin where it still feels comfortable and we can learn to navigate it. I think what pushed me in that direction faster than a lot of people was after my son was born. I've always had some chronic illnesses, but after my son was born, it triggered some more that I didn't have a choice. I was almost bedridden for nearly a year. Like I
Oh my
worked from
goodness.
bed or I worked from a corner of my bedroom. So I went from my bed to the corner, my bed to the bathroom, and then like played with my kids in my bedroom, in my bed. We were all there. And I had days where I could get up and be out, but it was such a thing where I had to reframe what is actually important, what actually matters. And so I think I got there a little faster than some, but at the same time, it's still a hard lesson to learn because the mom guilt feels so real, but it's usually a liar. Like it's usually just lying to us about what's going
Yeah.
on. And so I work with clients on that a lot because that's a big one that we all face. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking of all like my mom friends. I feel like I've heard them say very similar things. It's definitely a widespread
It is a
like thought.
widespread thing. It's nice to know we're not
Hmm.
alone, but it's also
Yeah.
important for us to know how to fix it
Yeah.
because that not having margin, not having space for yourself to just think. And for some people, folding the laundry is one of those places that actually gives them white space to think, or doing dishes. I don't think while doing dishes because it puts me in so much pain. Like
Mm,
it's not a peaceful place for me. But there are some people out there that would be a margin creating task because they just zone out, their brain gets creative, they're, whatever. Same with laundry. I can't the physical task actually makes my body. It puts me in so much pain that it's just a task I do because it has to get done. And
right.
so, but I've also changed how I do laundry around here because of that. So, my way of doing laundry would put most people into a tailspin because it's what works for us. And so, yeah. But the last ones are like visual clutter, doom scrolling, things that are cluttering up our brain space, which goes along with that margin. So that sounds counterintuitive to what I was just saying, because if you're saying, dishes will still be there, laundry will still be there, but you're also saying visual clutter burns you out, those things seem counterintuitive, but it just means being able to keep your space as well as possible and not completely cluttered, but still giving yourself grace if the dishes don't get done, if the laundry doesn't get done, those kinds of things. So those are what I've learned. And then those are those really small shifts we can or like the small contributing factors to burnout that people don't think about or don't realize are playing a huge factor in their burnout because they seem so small.
Yeah. It makes sense though, because they are like, especially if, I mean, I'm thinking mostly for myself, I'm like home a lot during the day.
Uh-huh.
I work from home. So like the visual clutter, it's like all around me all the time.
Mhm.
So it takes its toll.
Yes, it definitely does. So finding ways to simplify the systems of how you keep it, because I too can look around like behind where you are and be like, I don't know why all that stuff is there, or I don't know how that stuff got there, or I'm actually looking at my table and for the first time in a week and a half, it's completely clear. And it definitely makes a difference because I'm not looking up thinking about all the things that have to be done. And
Hmm.
that's what visual clutter does, especially for those of us with ADHD. It's also weird because it's the clutter reminds us of all the things we have to do, but then there's paralysis to do the task. And so we're just all we're learning how to live with our own brains and bodies is really what has to happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I was going to ask about that next, about how like executive function plays into it. Cause I know you work with, like I'm chronically ill and also neurodivergent people.
yeah, so with executive functioning struggles, because some of these it's easier, especially the containment one. It's like, okay, well, turn off the kid stuff for a while, turn on your music. That's a little easier than go clean your kitchen table, right?
Right.
So with those kinds of things, I help my clients establish systems that work for them. So I'm actually going to be doing another interview soon where I'm talking about how my system shifted over time because I was hating how our house was, not because it was messy, but because it did not work for me and my brain. So I help my clients really find the systems that work for their brain and their family. And that's going to look different for everybody. And so it's really about what level I help those that are chronically ill and neurodivergent who just have less capacity find them what I like to call the minimum viable product, which we hear that a lot in business, right? It's what you can put out the fastest to make some money. If we apply that in homekeeping and motherhood and business creation, it's the system that's going to give you the easiest return on your energy level without overspending your energy. And so like for me, it's keeping our kids' medicines in our mug cabinet because that's where I'm going to remember them for some reason. And we have a no fold laundry system. And up until the start of the school year, my kids' laundry, their clean clothes, were each in a drawer in our laundry closet. I guess it's a closet. I don't know what it is. We have a laundry closet where our washing machine is. I didn't have to fold anything or take it anywhere. Dryer in their drawer, dryer in their drawer. Now they have more clothes and they're bigger clothes. So they now have a drawer set in their room and they put their own clothes away, but it's a no fold system. My husband and I have our own system of stuff. And so I help clients find the thing that's going to work for them. My kids' socks are in a drawer in our kitchen table, which most people would be like, that's weird. But our kitchen table is right by the front door where they put their shoes on. And so socks.
That makes sense.
Right by the front door. So, I help them find the system that's going to be the easiest to work for them that still helps them keep as organized as possible for their level of functioning. And so, because most systems are for people that are at a higher level of functioning. So let's make a system that works for your level of functioning with the least energy expenditure possible.
I love that so much. I feel like we also have like a very weird laundry system in my house where it's just kind of like different things are in different places. My kids have dressers, but they don't really use dressers because they can't pull out like one thing. Everything would end up on the floor and then they would just get really overwhelmed and not dressed at all. So like we fold laundry together. They have like these hanging baskets on the back of their doors and like they pick out one outfit for like each little basket and it lasts like a week. So they have like, yeah. So we have weird systems. Not weird because they work for us.
Yeah.
I feel like that was like a really hard thing for me personally to get accustomed to because it's so different from how I grew up. But everyone in like my parents' house was neurotypical. And then everyone in my family, like my kids, my husband, all neurodivergent. So it's just going to be different.
Yes. So that is something I think a lot of us, if you are a neurotypical mom in a neurodivergent household, it's hard to learn that because you are trying to learn not only to create systems that work for you, but that work for your family. As a neurodivergent mom, you're trying to unlearn, especially if you were late diagnosed like me, you're trying to unlearn what either the neurotypicals or the non-diagnosed like neurodivergence in your life taught you. And the non-diagnosed neurodivergents were trying to work in a system that didn't work for them. So they were not even doing it the way that everyone else wanted it done, but they were doing it to mask in the best of their. So it's all unlearning and relearning. And so that's one thing that I help moms with is what is the system not only that's going to work for you, but your family?
Yeah.
And for some of them, it has to be solely what is the system that's going to work for you because no one else is involved. And then for some of them, it is what is going to work for your family because other people are involved. And so like when we got married, I told my husband, I am not doing laundry. I hate doing laundry. It's the worst thing in the world, but I will take care of dishes. We are almost 8 years in and it's reversed. I still hate laundry, but it's the task that I can mentally and physically do. And so he loads our dishwasher every night. And when we didn't have a dishwasher, he washed them by hand. The only time that changes is if he's out of town. I don't leave dishes for him to do when he gets back. Like that would drive me crazy to have dishes pile up like that. But we swapped roles because I got sick and things happened and we had kids and you build systems. And then I also teach how to adapt the systems as seasons change in your life. Because what works now when your kids are like, let's say I have a mom who has toddlers, what works now while they're a toddler is not going to stay exactly the same when they hit pre-K and elementary school and middle school. So I teach how to adapt as you go.
That sounds super helpful. I feel like I'm constantly like readjusting things as like kids age, and even like not even big like age milestones, but like we recently like daylight savings time ended. Our routines are messed up once again because of it. Like it's so annoying that it's dark at 5 p.m. now. We were homeschooling. I had mentioned this before I hit record, but we were homeschooling and now we switched to public school, which was like a huge transition. So everything is once again rearranging in my house. So that seems really incredible to be able to have that support during those seasons of change.
Yeah, it is really helpful because even when you learn the skills to adapt, sometimes it's still important to have the support in those seasons of transition because it is a lot. We started school for the first time last year when my kids hit pre-K and kindergarten age. And so I remember just learning how to adjust to the wake up times and the after school times and drop off and pick up and all of that was a lot. Luckily for us, our routine of bedtime and wake up time has been pretty consistent. Our kids have always gone to bed. Like our bedtime has always been 9 p.m., which most people think is crazy. But our kids don't have to get up at 5 or 6 in the morning because they don't have to be at school till 9:15, and we live right near our schools.
Same.
We get to wake up. The kids wake up naturally. I don't wake them up most mornings. They just wake up when they wake up. So they get plenty of sleep. And usually it's around like, let's see, I don't know. I can't do math. 9:30 to 9:30 would be 12 hours. So usually it's about 10 hours that they get of sleep a night, which I think is great. I think that's wonderful. So yeah, it takes adjusting, and sometimes you need someone to like help you find those little pieces that you can tweak. And then sometimes you're really good and set to do it on your own. So
yeah, having, I think that like external like feedback is kind of helpful. I feel like there would be a lot of things I would miss being like so close to it.
Yeah, that happens a lot with a lot of my clients.
And now I've talked to a lot of moms who are kind of in similar things in a similar place with struggling with like routines and systems and things. And I've heard some say that they're just bad at routines or like not disciplined enough. Is that something that you hear from your clients, and what would you say to them?
I do, but I also feel that for myself.
Oh, really?
And so I help people establish more so rhythms, so the ebbs and flow of your days, than strict routines or strict schedules. Because living with chronic illness, living with neurodivergence, and I do work with neurotypical moms too who aren't chronically ill, but I do end up with a lot of chronically ill and neurodivergent clients. Just naturally, we gravitate together.
Yeah.
And so what I tell them is it's more about the rhythm of everything, which is about the whole, than it is about the smaller parts or the strict routine. And so I do have routines that we keep in our life, but because I'm also working more in rhythm, I have mornings like this morning where everybody woke up late. So breakfast is never elaborate around here, but if we were an elaborate breakfast household, I would have simplified and pared down. I would have options in my house for the days that were late. And so this morning, they actually can have the option of snack at school. So I didn't pack snacks today because we didn't have time. They're going to eat lunch at school today because we didn't have time for me to make lunch. Or if we woke up on time, I probably would have made them lunch because they don't love the cold lunch at school, but they'll eat it. And so those kinds of things, you build in adjustments, and you can either have them like as structured as you, because I work with some people that really need the structure. And so you can make it as structured as you want, or you just have it as, oh, these are options. So if the routine gets thrown off, this is my backup choice, and I just go for that. So that's how I help them set it up. So it's not strict routine. It's not I do this every single day and I'm scheduled out all the time, because I don't prefer that either. I don't think that way all the time either. So that's how I help with that.
That makes sense. I feel like if I had everything like super strict, like planned out, super structured, I would kind of be setting myself up for failure, because I just know something's going to happen and throw something off, and then I'm going to feel awful about it, that I didn't get things done exactly the way I intended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like if you think about it, even for this interview, the first day I had to take my kid to the ER. The next time I didn't have a voice. So we have to account for that. And I will tell you the first day that it happened, because it was literally at the time we were going to meet, I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, but like I have to take him. If we build those things in, it does we can feel a lot better about ourselves, because like you said, most moms will set themselves up for failure if it's always a structured routine. Like it will set a lot of us up for failure, because life is going to throw you curveballs. Motherhood, business, it's all going to throw you curveballs. And so having that backup, or learning, one thing that helps a lot is learning how to communicate your needs assertively and set boundaries. And that's two things that a lot of my clients really struggle with. But that makes not having a strict routine a lot harder, because then if something throws it off, you do feel guilt, or you can't communicate it well, or things like that. And even that just makes it a lot easier to, tell my clients if I have a flare up that I need to either adjust how we're meeting or when we're meeting or things like that. If I didn't have the ability to set boundaries, communicate early on, then that would make it very difficult. So I do help clients with that too.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I feel like I hear that a lot as well, like the kind of people-pleasing type tendencies, instead of setting those boundaries that really respect your like abilities on any given day, because that changes.
Yes.
What is one tiny doable shift someone could make like this week to lower their burnout, or like a factor, like a contributing factor to burnout?
I'm gonna give two, because they kind of go hand in hand. But one is find 10 to 15 minutes every day or every other day that you can take back your entertainment or do some kind of hobby that you've pushed aside. 10 to 15 minutes for you, it doesn't sound like a lot, but as moms, we know it's really hard to find that in our day, but also it's really important. It makes we sometimes push it off because it seems negligible. Oh, it's only 10 minutes. It's not going to make a difference. I promise you it's going to make a difference. 15 minutes every day or every other day to take back your entertainment or do a hobby that's just you is going to make a huge difference in how you feel, in your levels of burnout, all of that. And then the other thing is values clarification. So sit down, really think about what your values are, and then think about what you're doing, how it aligns with that, because that will help you with being able to communicate your boundaries a little more clearly. If you're realizing, I value this thing, but I'm letting this thing override that. I don't want to do that anymore. So if you start with clarifying your values, some of this other stuff is going to, like your margins, you'll create more margin, because you'll realize I really value, peace and energy and things like that. Or it'll give you more motivation for decluttering or cleaning up, because you'll be like, oh, I value a clean space, or whatever it is. Like maybe you don't value that, and that's fine. You don't have to, but it'll help you see what your values are so that you can make aligned decisions. And so those are the two things I would start with today that would make a difference going forward.
That sounds really helpful. I'm intrigued by the values thing. I definitely want to try that. How long do you think it would take taking 10 to 15 minutes a day to notice a difference?
I think depending on the day, sometimes even that one day is like, I feel a little bit of a recharge, but it can take a few days for it to compound on itself, where you're like, I've actually been feeling more like me again, more space for the person that I've always been in this new situation of motherhood. So it can take right away, and then sometimes it's a few days to just compound on itself, but it'll be pretty quick. So
good.
Yeah.
Good.
So for the values thing, that could be one of your 10 to 15 minute things. Is like you sit down,
that's a good idea.
And for 10 to 15 minutes, you just really think through, what do I actually value in my life? What do I want it to look like? What do I want it to be? What values will get me there? And that could be one of those times of like, it's not a full hobby, but you could consider it like journaling or whatever. But that could be one of your days of 10 to 15 minutes. So it's not overwhelming. And then build from there, and it'll be pretty eye-opening for some people, because most people think they know what their values are, but they haven't sat down to look at them. And so it's pretty eye-opening. So if you do that as one of your 10 to 15 minute things, that's also like a way to spend time for yourself. So it's pretty helpful.
Yeah. Do you think that's something that I mean, I obviously assume it would like your personal life. Do you think that's something that would affect like a business owner life as well?
The values, 100%. Because what'll happen is you'll realize that you're probably doing a lot of things in your business, or maybe not a lot, but a few things in your business that don't support your values or don't like match your values. And then you get to decide, is this thing something I have to continue doing because of how my business runs? Or can I shift it and change it? And can I build a business that is more in line with my values, which is what I help moms do too. I like, in my program itself, that is one of the steps that we take, is how do these values align with your business and how do we make it match better?
Right. I
So,
imagine that's very helpful because I feel like a lot of the business advice out there is, attempting to do all the things and not even
yeah,
all the things, but like all the things that like all these other people, like the bigger businesses with like teams and stuff are doing
right.
that are not aligned with not only our values, but also like our capabilities.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I work with my clients in my program and we do talk about values, we also talk about how sometimes the misalignment is because we are just not doing the things that align, or we're doing more of the things that don't align. But sometimes it is out of what we need in the season. It can't align. And so we have to give ourselves grace for that. And then
Right.
sometimes the values that we have no longer line up with our capacity.
Right.
Like, I value global travel, but I have 2 young children. Like, this is an example because I actually really prefer to stay close to home. But like, let's say that was the case. I have 2 small children who are in school. I am running a private practice that I am in person at 2 days a week. Like, that does not currently align with where I'm at. I could I could reduce my expectations of the value or change how I live my life, but none of that's going to change overnight. And so we have to look at our capacity and reality with our values, but also there is a lot in our control that we're just not aligning with our values. And so I dig into that. But it's the same. So it's the same with motherhood, right? Business and motherhood. Everyone's got an opinion on how you do it, but you have to make it align with you, your family's needs, your family's capacity, and your family's values. So, and then,
Yeah, for sure.
and sometimes we fail to do that because we don't actually know what our values are or how much we value them. And so that pushes us to this place of, yeah. And that's why I say start there, because it'll be really eye-opening and it'll shift things in your motherhood and in your business. So,
Yeah, I'm excited to try that out. Now, if someone is interested in more ongoing support and like mentorship from you, where could they go to get more information?
So they can find me on Instagram. That's Instagram and Threads. That's where I'm pretty active at soul_cadence_coaching. And then I also have a YouTube channel. It's also Soul Cadence Coaching, so they can find me there. Soul Cadence Coaching, YouTube, Instagram, Threads. And then I also just created for people a cozy rhythm archetype quiz so they can see what their ideal cozy rhythm is for life and business as a mom. And so they can take that quiz and get more information about themselves and about what I do with their results for that quiz too.
It sounds amazing. I'm really excited to take that quiz. So I hope everyone who is listening does it as well. I will link all of those things in the show notes.
Great.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this conversation and learned so much, so I know my listeners will as well.
I love that. This was so fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here and for listening to me yap on Mompreneur Mastery. If planning your content and strategizing it still feels harder than it should, check out the Content Chaos Reset. You give it a little bit of information about your business and your offer, and it'll plan 2 weeks of content for you, posts, emails, blogs, or podcasts that all support each other so you have a cohesive marketing plan. It's free and it's linked in the show notes, or you can head to sydneyobrien.com/reset, RESET.